Biden will no longer visit Jordan as part of this week's trip. This comes after the country canceled a leaders' summit on humanitarian aid for Palestinians. The president had been scheduled to meet with the King of Jordan, the Egyptian president, and the Palestinian Authority president. I want to bring into the conversation now to speak more about this Dr. Benjamin Rad, lecturer on global studies, also a friend of the program. We've had you on here a couple of times breaking down the latest events. So, Benjamin, I want to start with the basics. What outcomes can we even hope for now that the president is not meeting with all of these Middle Eastern leaders during this trip?
Thank you for having me back. I think the best outcome right now is the president's arrival and the deliberative nature of U.S.-Israeli negotiations about how to handle the next phase is going to force the Israelis to slow down. I've heard even recently in the last 15, 20 minutes reports that Israel has apparently or allegedly postponed any planned ground invasion. All of this is to allow a way to minimize casualties to civilians in Gaza, because we can see what happens even when there is a possible false impression of Israeli attacks and that impact the civilian population. So I think the key now is the one benefit to take away from this is that it forces a more deliberative process that will minimize the impact to civilians and those who are in need of humanitarian relief.
Dr. Rad, I want you to break down for our viewers a bit on why the president of Egypt, the king of Jordan, why they decided not to meet with Biden at the last minute.
So they are very much at the whim of their people, their voters, their constituents, not in the case of Jordan because there's no elections, but Jordan has a population that's almost 2/3, if not more, Palestinian or ethnic Palestinians, originally Palestinians who were granted refugee status in Jordan in the late 60s and early 70s. And so given that most of Jordan's population is Palestinian and the Palestinians abroad in exile or those who are now in other Arab countries have been inflamed by the recent events of the last few hours, you can understand why the Jordanian king wouldn't want to risk any public furor and anger. Now, on the Egyptian side, you have the same thing. You have a president who is somewhat democratically elected, but still is weary of getting the public agitated and infuriated. So from his perspective, very little is to be gained by meeting with the American president, nothing that would benefit in the short term and only cause long-term headaches if it inflames the public more.
Dr. Rad, you've studied international politics and politics in the Middle East for a long time. That's why we've brought you on here as an expert on this topic. Can you ever remember a president's trip being cut short as he boarded Air Force One?
No, there's no memory. I mean, we've had incidents of secretaries of state engaged in shuttle diplomacy going way back to Henry Kissinger, where in the midst of war, conflict, where plans have been changed and rerouted. But something like this is unprecedented, and it makes you wonder the timing of everything that happened with the hospital. If in fact it was a Palestinian Islamic Jihad rocket that was misfired or maybe intentional. But it's interesting that the decision or the act has now resulted in a complete change of diplomatic protocol and procedure. So it's something to think about.
You know, something else that our viewers might be wondering is why this meeting was going to be held in Jordan in the first place. I mean, the conflict is not there.
No, but Jordan, again, with its large Palestinian population and the fact that the Jordanian king speaks for many Palestinians who are amongst his people, his citizens there, he has leverage. He has the ability to influence Palestinian Authority leaders in the West Bank more so than he does in Gaza. And of course, Egypt does have sway in negotiations with Hamas in Gaza. So the idea was to leverage the U.S. relationship with these two states that have formal peace treaties with Israel.
Can you briefly speak to the history of the United States and their relationship with King Abdullah and Jordan?
The United States and King Abdullah, and the United States and the king, the Jordanian Hashemite monarchy, have had great relations really going back to the 70s, and they've enjoyed U.S. aid. They've enjoyed essentially the fruitful benefits of a relationship with the U.S. And by and large, Jordan has been free from much of the trauma and drama that has plagued the Arab world in the last 20 years or so. The Arab Spring impacted them relatively minimal compared to other Arab states. And always it's been a fruitful dialogue between the two leaders, the U.S. and the Jordanian monarchy, going back to the king's father, the predecessor.
Well, Biden also supposed to meet with leaders from Egypt, and the Palestinian Authority. Let's talk a little bit more about the U.S.'s relationship with those two nations.
With Egypt, it is, again, Egypt as a result of the Camp David Accords of 1979, where the U.S. brokered a peace treaty between Israel and Egypt, the first between Israel and an Arab state. A huge part of that treaty, of the agreement, rested upon the United States providing Egypt and Israel with military and financial aid, so long as that treaty remained. And as a result, the U.S. has enjoyed good relations with Egypt going back to 1979, beginning with President Anwar Sadat. Sisi is a democratically elected leader. He is secular, as is the Jordanian king. So again, this is where their interests don't necessarily align with Islamist Hamas and, let's say, Iran, for example. And peace and stability benefits them more than the protests and the disorder that they would otherwise see.
Finally, Dr. Rad, you are someone that can also speak on Iran, their influence in this war, and their politics when it comes to the Middle East. Now, there are reports that Iran saying the president's visit is provocative. So can we expect a response from Iran? How do you think that they're going to react now that the president's visit is still underway?
I think we've already seen a response from Iran. In the last few hours, there have been massive street protests taking place. We've seen rocket fire escalate from the northern border, from Lebanon into the Sheba farms and into Israel proper. And we've also seen rocket fire coming from Syria into Israel. None of this could happen without Iran's blessing, let alone Iran supplying the weapons and the training needed to fire these weapons, whether it's through Hezbollah or through Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps forces who are assisting them. So I think we are seeing Iran now begin to make moves to see how it can capitalize on the chaos since the rocket attack on the hospital.
One follow-up question before I let you go, because we have been speaking to the fact that Egyptian leaders canceling their meeting, Palestinian leaders canceling their meeting with the president, Jordanian leaders as well. So the fact that Iran also responding negatively to this visit, was this even a good idea? Some people, of course, would argue that the president should have a presence in the Middle East during this war. But do you think that it may backfire?
If the president, upon arriving, signals his commitment, the American commitment, to providing for the civilian population of Gaza, to making sure that whatever war now results in the next few days and weeks is done with utmost care for civilians, that abides by the rules of law by both sides, if the president can get that, signal that, and get Israel to commit, which I believe it already has, then it will be seen as fruitful. But if it does not get a commitment from the Israeli side, then I think it might be counterproductive and put the U.S. in a more difficult position with its Arab partners.
Dr. Benjamin Rad, a lecturer on global studies, we appreciate your time here at Live Now from Fox. We look forward to speaking with you soon as we continue to cover this war in Israel.
Thank you.